Do you feel like we are overstating or at the risk of overstating how good they are a little bit because they beat an incomplete Laker team
Hmm.
who has no centers,
Hmm.
and they beat a Golden State Warriors team without Stephen Curry,
Right.
who
Yeah.
also have no centers?
Yeah.
Oklahoma City beats the out of Denver 125-93. Um,
And it wasn't that close.
and Denver pulled the plug early, like
Yeah.
early. Granted, it was 30 plus, but like 9-10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It was like, whatever.
Brian, I think they knew because Denver went for the knockout punch in the first quarter. Their hope was, all right, we are gassed and we're going to put all our energy into getting as big a lead as we can in the first quarter and hope this young team folds under the pressure because they can't handle it. And we are the Denver Nuggets, and the scenario and the situation overawes them. But what Oklahoma City did at the end of that first quarter was pull that to within 5 or 6. And then I put out a tweet where I said, because basically I looked at how they closed that quarter well. I said, this is how they win the game. You amp up that number one league leading defense where you're doing multiple efforts. You're turning them over. You get out and run and you wear this team down because Denver only goes 6 deep. So, and you guys go 8, 9 deep when Dagnall's not feeling nervous, right? So I was like, you guys do that and you'll be fine. And that's exactly what they did. And once they got up double digits in the second quarter, it was a wrap. Game over.
Once that run happened, that was where everything changed. It looked uneasy before that. But really, even before, because Denver got off to a very good start. Like they threw the first couple punches. You could say they won the first, in boxing terms, they won the first round, if you will, or the first couple rounds, maybe, if you want to extend it to two. And then Oklahoma City just kind of figured it out. And the defensive pressure, like they remind people, this is the best defense in the league. This is statistically one of the best defenses
Of all
that
time.
we've seen.
Mhm.
And this is why, one, the series they're about to have is so fascinating, but two, why they're really good. And while I do have some concerns about the secondary offense and just the general age, because you haven't done it yet, but you haven't done it until you do.
Correct.
And this is a wide open championship. And honestly, if a team is going to knock off OKC, why does it have to be the Knicks, Pacers, or Timberwolves? Like if we're adhering to, hey, this young team hasn't been tested, but it's like they could beat these teams. There's no like 96 Bulls or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what makes these playoffs so interesting. It's like OKC has a pathway, so does Minnesota, so do the Knicks, so do the Pacers. But keeping it to the Western Conference in particular, I mean, do you feel like we learned something about Oklahoma City in this series?
Yeah, I think so. Brian, there's a saying that experience is the most brutal teacher because it gives you the test first, then the lesson, right? And one of the things that we know about watching basketball, as we have for a long time, me a bit longer than you, as I'm showing my age with my gray hair, there is this old adage, right, of you have to go through playoff heartbreak and all of that before you are ready to get to the next level. And for the most part, that is true. But it doesn't always work in that way. The example I love giving is the Golden State Warriors. Folks, they won one. Matter of fact, they did not even win a playoff series prior to that. The year before they won the championship, they lost that game 7 to the LA Clippers in round 1. The
Mm.
next year, they win the championship, right? Like, so, and they didn't have a whole lot of playoff success prior to that to get them. It wasn't a whole lot of, oh, we got to the conference finals. Here's our heartbreak. They didn't have a whole lot of that. None of that happened for them,
Do you
and they won
count?
it.
But do you count that as? So is that enough? I guess this is the subjective part, but does that count as heartbreak? Even losing, that's a game 7. It's
Right,
round 1 only.
right.
But like,
I
I get the
mean,
point.
yes, it's heartbreak, but I think my larger point about it, Brian, is that the lesson doesn't have to be, okay, you lose in round 1, then you lose in round 2. It doesn't have to be that way, right? And it
Right.
also doesn't be you have to lose a couple years in a row. It can be one like last year. OKC was the 1 seed last year, losing in the second round. And this year, they make it all the way and win it because the lessons happen while the playoffs are going on. They learned a lot about themselves in this 7-game series. So the forging themselves through the fire happened in this series. It is happening in real time. They are learning right now and experiencing in real time how we get better. Here's how we execute in the clutch. Here's how we do what we have to do. Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are learning about themselves and learning about the playoffs in real time. So that can happen in the current year that you win it.
They also lost last year to who became the Western Conference champions.
Correct.
And I think looking at that may be enough. And if you look at just Shea, because usually this gets attributed to the stars, it doesn't get attributed to the whole team.
Right.
And J-Dub and Chet don't have a whole bunch of playoff experience under their belt, but Shea was there even in the bubble. Mm-hmm. He was there when they lost in the first round to, I believe that was the Houston Rockets. And then getting there last year, I was one of the people at Action who felt like, yeah, Dallas will win this series, not just off of experience, but also like as good as they are defensively. Luka's a problem for everyone on that team, and they can get enough shooting. And that's kind of what happened. And that was my fear in this game. It was like, oh, they're not hitting the shots. They started off 2 for 10 from 3, but then it was like steal, breakaway, steal, breakaway, steal, breakaway. And then eventually they hit their shots. Their offensive process got cleaned up. And Denver just didn't really have a lot of answers here. Rob drops in another comment. This is the most unpredictable series for me so far in these playoffs. So much inconsistency. I think Knicks Celtics might be the most unpredictable one for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We don't know about injuries. Like someone can twist an ankle tomorrow. And I have no idea.
Now, Rob, on a game to game basis, like this one is up there also in terms of like this series and the Knicks Celtics series had me questioning what I know a lot. Dex chimes in. He's excited for both conference finals, and he thinks both series are going to be long. And that's our guy Dex. Watch us both doing the watch along on the New York Post sports channel. We've had Jarod on,
yes, sir,
and every Knicks playoff game. So the entire Knicks Pacers series, and potentially one after if the Knicks get it done. We will be there every game.
I will say it's worth.
I think Dex is right though. I expect 2 long series, but
the series should be long. I think it's worth noting that in this 7-game series, all the Nuggets wins were by close margins, and 2 of the 4 Thunder wins were massive blowouts, and that's indicative and instructive to me, right? Because that tells me that when playing at their best, one team is significantly better than the other, and I do believe Oklahoma City is significantly better than the Denver Nuggets. The difference is that the Nuggets have the world's best problem solver in Nikola Jokic, right? Like that's the thing. And to be fair, this series could have been wrapped in 6, right? Had the Oklahoma City Thunder held on to that lead in game 1 and game
3.
I want to say or 4.
It was
3 or 4. Yeah,
it was 3. It was 3 because I think Denver had a 2-1 lead,
right? And so it was. But again, that's where they learned lessons.
Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat.
Here's how we learn. Here's how we hold on to leads. Here's how we execute down the stretch, right? And again, one thing I love about Oklahoma City, Brian, which is and about any team, that defense is what their calling card is. That old adage of defense traveling, and right, because defense is about collective effort, will, spirit, and understanding your matchups, right? Like shots go in and out, whatever. But defense is right. That defense is a consistent thing that you can always bring to the table. And when the Thunder, with their long athletes and all their rotations, when they turn you over and they get out and run, that helps their offense, right? Like obviously, that gives them more possessions. And then they crushed the Nuggets today, like in turning them over, like I want to say 16, 17 times. Like, I mean, just
3,000.
I mean, yeah.
It's debilitating.
Listen,
as someone who played on a team that turned the ball over a lot at one point, it sucks. It sucks watching the other team just like boop and just steal it back. And as someone who used to get steals when he played in high school, it's the best feeling in the world. It's the best going coast to coast. Oh my goodness! Especially when you're short and you can't score a bunch of other ways.
So I expect the long series. I think Ant will have his say, and Ant going against this defense will be interesting. Shea going against Minnesota's defense will be interesting. But ultimately, yes, I know they split the regular season 2-2, but I just think that
who was out, who was in,
right.
What
I
time
think
of the year, who was on the back-to-back.
Correct. I think ultimately Oklahoma City is the better team. Yes, Minnesota has conference finals experience because they were there last year. But at the end of the day, if you are in the conference finals, that means you have a legit shot of going to the NBA finals. So what you 50-50 shot, 1 and 2. So and obviously then the odds say more because Oklahoma City is favored to actually win the whole thing. So
they are. It's funny that you say that. Let's actually look up the odds right now. So Oklahoma City is favored by 7.5 in the very first game, and they're favored -150 to win the title. Knicks are +425, then Minnesota +550, then Indy +600 to win the series. Oklahoma City is -330. Minnesota's +265. This is basically just open. So we'll see how that moves.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting to me, Brian, is, and I understand why the Thunder have that big spread in game one, despite them going long and going 7.
Yeah.
I always give the edge to the team that has just recently come off a long series in game one, because in an odd way, their intensity level is already ratcheted up, right?
They're in form, to use a football term.
Correct. Whereas Minnesota's been off since what, last Wednesday?
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yes.
Right. So yeah, you can scrimmage all you want, but they're not in NBA conference finals like the Thunder were just in a do or die game. You lose that game, you're going home. So they're a little bit more prime. So I do understand why they have the edge in game one.
I need to look up the numbers as to who game one typically benefits in this situation. But as we learned from last round, Russ didn't win the, sort of rest or whatever battle that was. I think I fucked it up a little bit, but you get what I'm saying, where it's like, like all the teams that were rested, like Cleveland lost.
Right. Now, to be also clear, Cleveland and Boston also dealt with injuries, right? So that aided in those other two teams winning. Yeah. But yes.
I want to ask you about Minnesota.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we are overstating or at the risk of overstating how good they are a little bit because strength of playoff schedule, if you will, because they beat an incomplete Laker team who has no centers, and they beat a Golden State Warriors team without Stephen Curry,
right,
who also have no centers.
Yeah.
Now you're going to face a team with
two centers,
right. Although
one and a half.
Yeah. But size everywhere, much better. Golden State's a pretty good defense now, but a much better defense. And the Lakers are not. They're not anyone's.
I mean, when you play the Lakers, you're playing 5-on-4 because Luka ain't guarding nobody.
LeBron ain't either. It's 5-on-3.5. Although he was guarding in the playoffs, he's trying, but still. But like, are we overstating Minnesota a little bit, or do you think they have a really legit chance of beating the Thunder here?
I think in the collective consciousness, in terms of NBA Twitter, yes, because the Lakers and the Warriors are known commodities because they have 3 of the most popular celebrities in all of basketball in LeBron, Luka, and Steph, right? So,
and 2 of the 4 most popular brands in the sport.
Right. So anytime you beat those teams, it's going to give, right? All the talking heads on the shows are going to talk about, they're going to hype you up, because even though I didn't think the Lakers were going to do anything this postseason, nor that I think the Warriors are going to do anything this postseason. That's just me from watching the basketball and knowing what I know. That doesn't mean they're bad. Do I think they have a chance? Of course they do. They're in the conference finals. They 100% have a chance.
Sure.
However, I do think if Oklahoma City plays at their best, I do believe that they are the better team and they will win this series.
I'm in the same place. I wonder how, because we've talked a lot about, just not you and I, but the collective NBA sphere of commentators have been talking about Julius Randle and his playoff emergence, because he's never had a good playoff series until right now, where he's had a couple. And I also look at that and I'm like, while I give him credit, again, I need to see what it looks like against Chet, Isaiah Hartenstein, and even some of the bigger wings, on OKC. J-Dub, for example. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also a good
Casey Wallace, Lou Dort.
Alex Caruso. Like, it keeps on going. And I do wonder, like, what's that going to look like with OKC? Like, I'm not as worried. And it's not just young legs. I'm not as worried about them coming off this long series, and they're just good enough. They play a lot. Like, they play a lot in terms of, like, their rotation is a deep rotation. Them and Indy have the 2 deepest rotations left, which I think is going to be interesting to see how these strategies bear out in a series where now it's every other day. Yeah. It's every other night now.
I think that matters. Forward. I think it matters.
I think that matters a ton in terms of, rotations, and to have like Tibbs on one side, on the Knicks side, and then with Minnesota, like, we'll see what happens there. But with OKC, like, what is the thing? I think for both teams, actually, what do you think is most important from a strategic standpoint? Like, what does OKC have to get to? And what does Minnesota have to get to really put their stamp on this series?
For OKC, it's about the defensive intensity and the multiple efforts, again, and generating chaos and turnovers. You mentioned we both mentioned Alex Caruso at the same time. Let's sing his praises for a second here as I get into my point. the average fan looks at his stat line and is like, oh, no big deal. But again, if you watch the game,
They also look at him and be like,
well, right, exactly. But you watch the game and you see how he impacts possessions and winning. And in the playoffs, that's what matters. Winning possessions. It's Alex Caruso forcing Christian Braun to travel in the corner. That's a wasted possession. You get nothing, right? That's Alex Caruso getting a tip, forcing you now to have to go back to pick up the ball. Now you're taking a shot late in the clock, contested, hand. Right? It's all these little things that's making your offense harder and harder to generate. Those are wins, right? Help leading you to a missed shot that is a win. So for me, if this Oklahoma City Thunder can engage defensively in that way consistently in this series, I give them a huge leg up. And then it is their secondary and tertiary offense. When they get bogged down because, yeah, they got to stop at the other end, but Minnesota gets back, so they're not able to get out and run, right? How is Jalen Williams? How is Dagnall getting Chet, Jalen Williams to get secondary and tertiary offense created? And will Casey Wallace, all those guys shoot the three with confidence? Because that's the big thing. I noticed in this game when it started, you mentioned the Nuggets, kind of hit them in the mouth first. A lot of what I saw, because they were getting looks, Brian, the Thunder players besides Shea all looked nervous shooting the ball. A lot of short arming it. And it was the moment of, oh my God, this is a game 7. And I wonder, if now that they've gotten that under their system, okay, but ultimately it's a basketball game, right? The rim's the same size, ain't nothing changed. The court's the same dimensions, right? So shoot it with confidence. And I want to see how those guys doing that now that the stakes are ratcheted up, because if we win this, we're going to the big show for the big gold prize.
And I think that's super important because they lost game 6. So that's the other piece of it. It's you had the chance to close it out. And honestly, you in that game, it was a winnable game for them at some point. But Julian Strother went absolutely berserk. And again, I hope he plays in the America Cup this year.
And you have to be okay with that, right? Know that somebody from the other team who you don't think about is going to go berserk, and
role players win championships.
You cannot let that get you home and free. Hey, man, run your stuff, do what you got to do. Now on the Minnesota side, can their defense be consistent enough? Can Rudy and Julius Randle, can they rebound well enough in this series? Can McDaniels be a consistent 3-point shooter and knock down shots? Because they're gonna sag off him to not get you prove to us that you can beat us. Then we'll see about coming out to guarding you, right? Is that gonna mess with him, or is he gonna take advantage of that? I'm not really worried about Ant, because Ant's gonna do what Ant does, right?
Are you sure?
Well, in the sense that he is not going to be afraid of the moment.
Sure.
However, that could potentially be his downfall,
right?
Because Ant can be like, hey, none of y'all don't want this? Okay, I want this. And he'll get that Kobe system in his head and try to go 1-on-5. And I'm like, bruh, you gotta, come on, you gotta trust your teammates, dish the rock, move the ball, all that.
This is the ultimate thing for me, because secondary offense, I think it's a question on both sides.
For sure.
In terms of the viability of it. Julius Randle has to prove it again and prove it now in this series, more so against double big lineups and against quicker
and Brian
wings.
If it's not working, is he dribble down the clock, and is Ant getting mad, staying in the corner, being like, yo, MFer, come on, man, right? No, I do wonder about that.
And the other thing here is again, with Ant, not that these guys are going to stop him, but you have a lot of options to throw at Ant that really you only need to throw at Ant. There's not another guard on the team where you're like, oh shit, we got to account for them. Caruso will get some. Jalen Williams will get Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, even although I don't know how much. Lou Dort is probably the big one.
Casey Wallace is going to get some.
Casey Wallace. And I feel like we're even missing a guy or two.
If Wiggins plays, which they do on the bench, Wiggins will get some on him.
And look, if Wiggins makes shots, he's going to play. That's ultimately what it comes down to for him. He had a nice step back 3 today that I thought was big for him to go in. I want to throw this at you also, and then we'll get into the Eastern Conference. We'll do predictions, then we'll get to the Eastern Conference. But just a stat real quick. So per 100 possessions in the postseason, of all the teams remaining, obviously just 4, Minnesota averages by far the most turnovers per 100. And remember, there were times against the Warriors, particularly where they would get sloppy with the ball, average almost 16 turnovers per 100 possessions. Not ideal. The least before tonight, and it's still going to be the case because Oklahoma City had 9 turnovers in the game. they averaged less than 11. There's 10.9 turnovers per 100 possessions. Once that updates, it's going to be very, very minimal.
Yeah.
And if anyone's curious, the Knicks are at 13.5 and Indiana is at about 13. So not much difference there between the East teams. That's 5+ turnovers of a difference between Minnesota and Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City, along with not turning the ball over a ton, they make sure that you turn the ball over a lot.
And turnovers are one of those things, Brian, is that like oftentimes when they start, they kind of, it's like a bleeder, right? They kind of just keep coming. And so when Oklahoma City's cranking like they did today, when they from the end of that first quarter, basically through till the Nuggets to the white flag, they amped up that D, and man, they got, and really all series, they forced Jokic to turn the ball over a ton because the secondary help was always coming from his blind side where he didn't see it coming, right? And it's because of the way they ball pressure, right? They pressure the ball so far up front that the help has to come from this side because Jokic has no other option. He can't go back this way because of the ball pressure, right? And so you turn, boom, here we go. Now we're going the other way. And listen, and Jokic is, as I said, the best problem solver. Minnesota don't got no problem solver as good as him, right? So I just, again, if they turn over at that clip, this is going to be a problem for them in this series.
Okay, I'm going to say as my prediction, and again, as new information comes out, meaning if things look shaky after 1-1 or whatever, you have to evolve with new information. Like, for example, I thought the Celtics would beat the Knicks in 5, and then after game 2, I was like, oh, the Knicks are probably going to win this series.
Correct.
Then after game 3, I was like, after game 4, I was like, oh, the Knicks got this series. But I was like, it'll be in 6 because they'll blow game 5, and they absolutely did that. As it pertains to this, I'm going to go with Thunder in 6.
I was leaning that way, but I'm going to go Thunder in 5.
I thought about it. I thought about it.
I'm going to go Thunder in 5. For that turnover stat that you mentioned, once you told me like that they were the number 1 turnover team, I was like, okay. And I know why.
Left. Yeah.
It's because of the way that Ant and Julius Randle get dribble happy with the ball, right? And listen, the worst thing you can do against a team with active hands is be dribble happy, okay? Because they're going to take it from you, right? They're going to poke Caruso and all this. And when you watch these guys, Brian, their wingspan, their arms are long as shit. So they can dig in there and get, and that's, look, Golden State turned them over a ton. They just couldn't score without Steph. Well, this team doesn't have that problem because they're going to get out and run. So
Minnesota could win this series.
They could, for sure.
But yeah, 1,000%. But I think Thunder in 5 would surprise me less than Minnesota winning this series. But we'll see. I mean, look, rest advantage, and also, unfortunately, injuries tend to determine these things. So,
of course,
hopefully both teams are healthy. Hopefully all teams remaining are healthy. But we know that statistically and just in 2025, it's just not going to be the case.